It's a pleasure to see you again.
You too. When did we last see each other?
Oh, I think it was Toronto probably
Oh, right, yeah.
that amazing performance as the
St.
Russian in St. Vincent. It's so amazing. Well, I responded very well to the Sea of Trees because I've been through the same kind of experience and I was myself in search of spirituality at that time. I think that's what the movie is about.
Yeah.
The state you're in when you're in that microcosm of, we're not going to reveal what it is. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I fell in love with this this dysfunctional marriage that they're in, and it was heartbreaking because I felt like the love was all there, but they've lost their way. And Matthew said at the beginning that he saw Joan as this vertical character and himself as a horizontal character, and we were just missing each other, but not through lack of love. And this massive power struggle that has put them in a place where they're just beating heads and not able to move through it. And every time they get close, something happens and they're off again until they get this massive wake-up call, and it takes that very thing for them to suddenly see past it and appreciate one another and forgive one another. So it's really sad and heartbreaking, and then of course this great tragedy.
Yeah. Is it the kind of role you can research? Can you talk to couples who have been through those moments and then those clarity moments?
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, right away when I read it, it felt reminiscent of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, you know, this high drama, high dysfunction, you know, the power struggle, the blaming, the shaming, and she's got her problem with alcohol, he's got his problem with just not engaging emotionally, and so they're just drifting off in different directions, but at the same time the fight keeps them together as well. There's this fear of, what if the fight disappears? Then who will we be? What do we have after that? So it's almost like that becomes their pulse. I've certainly know about power struggles. I mean, I think that's something we can all relate to, that it starts in the family you grow up in, and then it's in the playground, and then it's in the workforce, or, you know, you can see a version of that in different places in your life. Yeah, I think they had their potential, and just as they're about to reach that, it all goes in a horrific direction. But it's life affirming because it makes you think. Just let it go. Just forgive. Just appreciate and let the love in.
Totally agree. What do you think of Joan as a woman and as a wife in general?
I loved her from the very first read. I thought, wow, she's got big problems and she's definitely in the way of herself, but she means well, and she's just afraid. She's just afraid of not being loved in the right way. I think we can all relate to that.
Is it important to get along with your co-star in movies like that, because those two characters carry so much backstory to them?
Yeah, well, we created a great device in order to get close to each other, because, you know, these days there's never enough time to spend weeks rehearsing and discussing, and I'm not great on the phone, and Matthew reached out to me and said, let's connect, and I thought, well, I'd introduced the idea of, should we write via email, and I said, do you mind if we write in character? And straight away he wrote back, write at will, love Arthur. And I got goosebumps, and I thought, great, this is fantastic. I knew that he liked to work from very much a deep internal place, so I was glad for that response, and hopeful that would be the way he would approach it. And we wrote for 6 weeks back and forth, sometimes 3 times a day. Sometimes a few days would go by and I wouldn't hear from him, and then, you know, sometimes the emails were argumentative and very combative, you know, very challenging, very deep. Sometimes they were very loving, and the thing about when you, as an actor, when you're trained, if other actor comes to you with an idea in an improvisational way, then you go with it, you run with it, you don't block them. And so we just both went there, and it was great. So by the time I got to the set, because they'd already shot that section in all the stuff in the forest, we were able to feel like we were
Yeah.
deep in the trenches of you know, midlife marriage.
Hey, you just inspired me. I'm thinking that I never wrote a personal email to my husband. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
Oh, really? Never?
You know, it's like it's in this
'Cause
day
you're
and age
always-
of technology.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you just always write like short messages and stuff like that. You never
Yeah, well,
really
some
write.
of it was like that. The
Yeah.
minutia, the the banal emails of, can you pick up some wine on the way home? I'm running late. Or some of it was, he's a wonderful writer. He would write poetry, and sometimes I would send voice messages, and it felt very intimate, and it was a good way to just get the things bubbling underneath.
Exactly,
the
great
surface.
idea. Do you find that sometimes you have an impression on actors before you work with them, and then when you work with them, it's either the same or different? How does it usually work?
Say that again. Do I find?
Like you have an impression on an actor that you
Yeah.
haven't worked with but seen on screen, and then you work with them. Does it change usually, or is it usually?
I mean, it's always interesting figuring out a way somebody works and how open they are. I've been really lucky. I feel like everyone I've worked with, I've had great experience with. I was nervous working with Bill Murray. I'd never done that sort of broad comedy, and he's obviously well established comedian, and I heard that he doesn't necessarily warm to everyone right away, but we clicked. It was good. Again, in that case, I went straight in, all completely in character, because I think I was terrified. And
I
the only way
enjoyed it
to
so much.
Thank you.
She was really like
She was fun. It was
someone so
definitely-
memorable.
it was
And
fun.
and you feel this is it in Hollywood, to have a great career? It's filled with great moments like that. Great different roles. Great different.
Yeah, I mean,
things,
I just think
memories.
you're looking as an actor to always do something a little bit different and changing it up, so you don't feel like you're just repeating stuff. I hope that every role I take on grows me in a way, personally. And sometimes you're not quite sure why you're instinctively drawn to it, but it sort of makes sense later on in a way.
I've interviewed you many times in Cannes, but obviously the first time was probably the one that you're most nostalgic about. Do you
Yeah.
still think about it when you go up the
Oh,
red
yeah.
carpet? Go
Yeah,
back
I'll
in
never
time?
forget that night. It's like, the first time something big happens. It's like, you remember your first love.
Or my first Cannes, actually.
Yeah, or your first can. It's always, no matter how many times I've done it, it's always a nerve-wracking experience. You never quite get used to it. It's a big deal,
Yeah.
walking up those steps, arm in arm with all of the cast and the music playing. I mean, even last night, I was just like, feel quite emotional.
No, absolutely. It's just such a hoopla. It's
Yeah.
a microcosm, unlike anywhere else, actually. I don't even think the Oscars have that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, it's really special. And the protocol, the formality of it, it feels special.
Absolutely. Obviously, everybody talks about red carpet, but this year it's all about, don't ask us about our dress, ask us about what we do. How do you feel about that whole campaign? Because obviously beauty is an important part of your job, but it shouldn't go too far.
No, and I've made sure that beauty is not the thing that I rely on. I mean, I've always thought of myself as, I've never been the pretty girl. My face can change with makeup and lighting and things like that. Of course, I can get glamorous and enjoy that moment just as much as anyone with dresses and hair and makeup, but it's certainly not the driving force of my choices. I want to be as ugly and raw and emotional and strong and complicated as the character calls for. So whatever it is, and but yeah, I like last night, everyone as I was leaving the theatre, as we were all leaving, everyone was saying, "Let's do a fashion shot. Let's do a fashion." Like, no, you don't peel away and just start posing for the dress. This is about the group, and that's what we're here for.